But the Labour Party had a bit of a problem. 47 of the 232 Labour MPs went against the party leader, and I would argue too, went against the country, but they voted against the triggering of Article 50, and that included 10 of Corbyn's front bench shadow ministerial team. Now, one thing I know from my experience in politics is that split parties do not get lots of votes. People aren't motivated to go out and vote for split parties. And the Labour Party isn't just split on Article 50, it's split on the whole question of immigration and what their approach to it should be. It is split over Trident, and it is split between what I would call the North London intellectuals and old Labour of the old industrial cities. It presents itself with an absolutely massive problem. Now, Jeremy Corbyn is very much one of the North London intellectuals, very much a person that talks of himself as being a global citizen, and his position on Europe, well, frankly, he's been against it for the whole of his career. He decided in the referendum to back Remain, albeit reluctantly, and he now presides over a party that is very much at war between its Westminster representatives and a huge chunk of its voters out in the country. And the question that I'm posing to you tonight is the Labour Party on the verge of disaster? And I have to say, just looking at the polls, looking at the numbers, seeing how irreconcilable the people who live in those post-industrial towns and the Westminster Labour MPs are, I think they've got a major problem. I just don't see how, with Jeremy Corbyn as leader, they're going to have a cat's chance in hell at the next general election. But I want to hear from you. And I particularly want to hear from you if you're a Labour member, a Labour supporter, a Labour voter, an ex-Labour voter. So if you're a Tory, we'll just go make a cup of tea. But it's the Labour people I want to hear from. I mean, you know, a lot of people have joined the Labour Party. There are many who think that Corbyn actually stands for very good high principles and that provided he's consistent, in the end, he'll win through. So please, I want to hear from you. So get involved, call me on 0345 60 60 973. Text me on 84850. You can tweet me on @LBC. Don't forget the hashtag Farage and LBC. And you can watch this on LBC's Facebook page right now. And I'm going to go to James in Romford. James, I think the Labour Party's got a massive problem. What do you think?
Hello, Sir Nigel. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well.
They're absolutely in tatters. They've totally disregarded what the British people want. They've now turned and give their leader a slap round the face. They've lost all comprehension of what the democratic process means. And if he can't whip them into shape, who is? Who can?
So James, 10 of his front benchers, there's just over 40 who are shadow ministers, and 10 of them rebelled last night and voted against the triggering of Article 50. So, James, what should he do? Should he sack them?
He should definitely make an example of someone. Who's the lady who's in the pub? It's like a mad free-for-all.
Oh, well, Diane, no, she was ill. Diane Abbott had flu. Migraine, was it? Or it could have been lots of things. She wasn't well enough to turn up, James.
I think she, what was it? Hair of the dog, wasn't it?
I don't know, although I know about the subject, obviously. Split parties, I said at the start, I remember going back a few years, on one side in UKIP there was myself and a guy called Roger Natman, and there was a split between us and Robert Kilroy Silk. And in the end, we won and Kilroy Silk left. But literally, our poll ratings just fell off a cliff. We almost disappeared off the face of the earth, because the voters say, if you can't sort yourselves out, why on earth should we be bothered to go down to the polling station and spend our time and put confidence in you? So, James, they've got a problem being split, because how do you mobilise Labour voters? But should Corbyn sack them?
I would say, look, the working class people of the UK can only rely on UKIP now, because all hope is lost in the Labour Party. It has been for quite a few years. I was Labour growing up, my family was, but their attitude towards the European Union, their attitude towards the British people, their attitude to their own leader Come on. They're not listening to anyone. It's a free-for-all. Sorry.
Well, that's what some people think. Others, of course, James, think that he's a star and a hero and that he stands out and fights the establishment. But, James, your view could not be clearer. Interesting thought, isn't it, if he was to sack these 10 shadow ministers, because there are 43 shadow cabinet posts. And in the couple of years that Corbyn has been leader of the Labour Party, they've already had 76 different people in those roles. So the turnover rate, the number of sackings, the number of resignations has been pretty legendary already. So on the one hand, you think, impose discipline, sack them, but it begins to look a little bit farcical in terms of the sheer turnover. I wonder what Prakash in Camberwell thinks of the state of the Labour Party and Mr Corbyn's leadership. Prakash, good evening.
Nigel, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm just to set my stall out, I'm a Labour supporter.
Yeah.
And I think, look, Labour, as you know, Labour is going through a difficult period, and the reason for that is that most Labour voters did vote for Remain. Having said that, most Labour constituencies voted to leave, right? So
yes.
there's this split, which is like, it's a very difficult thing to manage. I think anyone would find, even you'd find it difficult to manage, and I think you're a very skilled chap. Now, I think one of the things is that the Labour leadership has made the right decision in supporting Article 50. We had a referendum, there was a democratic process, and albeit false information being circulated on both sides, there was a decision. Now, I personally voted to leave, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I voted to leave is because I believe that the British Parliament should be the executive for making decisions for the British on behalf of the British people. And I would probably have compromised on Tony Benn's position, which was that providing that the British Parliament was ultimately the backstop for any decisions in Europe, I could have gone along with the European Union, but it isn't. And that is the basis on which I voted to leave.
Prakash, I get the logic of that absolutely entirely, but and let's be fair, I think Corbyn did do the right thing by imposing a three-line whip and saying we have to go with the majority will in this referendum. The question is, as a Labour supporter, what does he do about those 10 shadow ministers and about, in total, 47 of his party?
About it. I really think he should be relaxed about it, because ultimately we need to move on from the vote last night, and we need to contribute towards the debate for making the best possible Brexit possible for Britain. Because if those 100 MPs, or no, 47 MPs abstain, we then get into a debate about whether we should leave or remain. That debate is over. We move on, and we move on to making the best possible Brexit. And my concern is that I don't have any confidence in Theresa May. She's shown her cards. She's shown that she's not able to. She doesn't have integrity.
Well, there are many at the moment, Prakash, that think she does, and maybe one of Corbyn's problems is when you look at the polling and the ratings as to who looks like and sounds like a prime minister, she leads over him by an absolute country mile, and that is undeniable. Prakash, I completely get what you're saying, but I have a slight fear that what you're going to see with your Labour Party next week is all 47 of them fighting and arguing for a whole series of amendments to attempt to slow down, block or dilute in some way that vote. Your Facebook messages coming in. Laucan Creasy says, sack Diane Abbott. I think that's terrible. How can you sack someone that was ill? It's awful. I believe her. I'm sure the rest of you do too. Jane Hale says, what should happen to the Labour MPs that have defied the three-line whip? Apparently nothing. Well, it looks to me, Jane, although absolutely nothing is going to happen. I think you're right. And Charlie Baxter says, would have been a different story had Ed not stabbed his brother David in the back. Well, Charlie, you may well be right. I wonder what David in Croydon thinks of Corbyn and the Labour Party. Are they electable? Are they in dire straits, David?
Good evening, mate. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Very good to be on your show, to be honest. I think he's doing a very good job, looking back at how much backstabbing has gone on in the Labour Party for a long time. I'm a Labour supporter, and I really think that he's really, really doing a good job. It's really sad, because you've been in the same position where the media was hunting you. Everything that you said was skewed in one way or the other. in a way, I see Corbyn being almost like Donald Trump-like in terms of how the media and the establishment really, really do not want him to succeed. You know,
David, that's a fair point. There are large chunks of the media, our newspapers in particular, who are vociferously opposed to Jeremy Corbyn and his ilk, and always will be. But what he's not doing, I put it to you, he's not showing potential Labour voters that there's a united party that they can come and support. That's his problem.
I can totally agree with that point. And to some extent, I also think that he's almost like he needs to come out from this party movement thing that he's been going for so long. I think he needs to come out from those sort of movements, establish himself like a really, really, really good candidate for all majority of UK member or UK population. Then he can actually stand. He can't go to every protest movement. You can't stand against almost everything in the country. You know, so I think he's doing a very good job in a way, like I said, from all the backstabbing and stuff. And it's very good to be on the show. That's all.
David, thank you, and thank you for your sympathy, because yes, I do know exactly what it's like to be abused by large sections of the media. Leading a political party, I promise you, is a little bit tougher than many people think, and I do understand Jeremy Corbyn's difficulties. Right now, you're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively here on LBC. It's 7:15.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
A call to faith with the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, joined by Cardinal Vincent Nichols, the Archbishop of Westminster, leader of the Catholic Church in England. Julie, you're in Woking.
The prevalence of child sexual abuse in our country now, and I just would like to know what the Archbishop and the Cardinal are doing.
And this, of course, comes, Archbishop, as you last night issued an unreserved and unequivocal apology. You admitted the Church had failed to report abuse of teenage boys. You'd actually worked at a holiday camp at which these boys were allegedly groomed for abuse.
Yes, I was at that particular camp in the mid-70s. I was completely unaware of any abuse.
Never heard anything?
I never heard anything at all. I wasn't a close friend of his. I wasn't in his inner circle. Far from it.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Every weekday morning from 7. Only on LBC.
With Hampton by Hilton. From a great night's sleep to the perfect breakfast included.
What drives you to attraction? Is it the taste of anticipation? Are you tempted by the touch? Is it hearing the sound of true passion? Experience the Jaguar XF from £289 a month plus VAT on Jaguar contract hire.
Business users only. Initial rental £1,737 plus VAT. 36-month Jaguar contract hire. VAT at 20%. Offer ends 31st of March. 10,000 miles per annum. Mileage and return conditions apply. Visit jaguar.co.uk for more details.
Here's a true story from Aldermartin, Baines and Cuthbert. In January 2015, fire tore through a residential development in London with potentially serious physical and financial risk for the residents and owners. Fortunately, an ABC representative was quickly on site and made sure all the residents were transported safely to a paid-for hotel and given all the assistance they needed. No fuss, no hassle. For block management, ABC Estates will give your story an ending that'll make you as happy as Larry. Find out more at abcestates.co.uk or call 0800 888 6688.
Do you have a pension? Maybe you've got more than one. How do you know if they're in the right pension funds, making as much money as possible for your retirement? Answer is, you probably don't. At the Pension Works, our fully qualified independent financial advisors could add instant value to your retirement fund. Simply text the word YES to 83222 for your free Pension Works health check. That's YES to 83222 today. Your pensions working harder with the Pension Works.
At Travel Pack, we're a preferred partner for British Airways, which means you can discover the wilds of Africa, the Canadian Rockies, shop in Dubai, explore the Far East and India, or take a road trip across the USA, all with great prices. For flights and tailor-made holidays at amazing prices, call Travel Pack today on 0208 903 9999 or visit travelpack.com. Travel Pack, a preferred partner for British Airways. At all protected.
A big night out. A lumpy bed. There are so many things that can keep us awake. But if you can't sleep because you're worried about paying the bills, we can help. Capitalise provides free, impartial and confidential face-to-face support to help people in trouble manage their debt. Find out more at capitalise.org.uk.
La La Land is the most acclaimed film at this year's BAFTAs, with an incredible 11 nominations. It's the most awarded film in Golden Globe history, and now has an outstanding 14 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture of the Year. It's the film that critics are raving about. A masterpiece, says The Guardian. They just don't make films like this anymore, says the Evening Standard. 5 stars from The Times and The Telegraph. Don't miss it on the big screen. La La Land, in cinemas now.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
Labour was split last night. 47 members of Parliament voted against the 3-line whip on Article 50, including 10 shadow ministers. And I've been asking, should they be fired? Should, Jeremy Corbyn get a sort of iron grip on the party and say we're not divided? Or should he just say, look, people have different opinions? And it's interesting because I'm getting lots of comments on this, but I'm getting more comments about one Labour MP who didn't turn up. And her name is Diane Abbott. And Dominic in Putney tweets in, Abbott needs to be sacked after yesterday's cowardly no-show. And there are lots of messages in that vein. And this may be very unfair. It's quite possible that Diane Abbott did have a very nasty migraine and wasn't well enough to turn up. But there's a lot of nasty things, Diane, being said about you. So please call me on 0345 6060 973 and let's put this to bed once and for all. And I get Jack in York who texts me and says, why do you criticise Jeremy Corbyn when he is anti-establishment too? He clearly wanted Brexit. The media hate him, always a good sign, and the party tried to overthrow him. But the people love him. Well, Jack, the previous caller we had was David from Croydon before the break, and David was saying that, he thinks good things about Jeremy Corbyn. And let's be honest, when he became leader of the Labour Party, or when he put his name forward to run as leader of the Labour Party, the party had 200,000 paid-up members. Now, the peak, way back in 97, in the absolute heydays of Blair, had been about 400,000. And yes, you can argue joining the Labour Party for £3 was really very cheap. But now the Labour Party has over 500,000 members. So he's completely rejuvenated the Labour Party membership. Many of those are young people. And that in itself is quite remarkable, given that we know a lot of young people in Britain don't vote. I would also praise him for his social media activity, whether it's Twitter or Facebook. He has a very, very big number, not just of followers, but people who actively engage. And he does, in many ways, appear to stand for principles that he's believed in for decades, apart from Brexit. And I'm saying this to Jack in York. Jack, he had voted against the European project at virtually every opportunity since he became an MP back in 1983, but he fudged it over the referendum because he thought on this issue his own party really would throw him out. But, we have to be fair and say he's brought a lot of people into politics. The problem, I think, is that the people he's brought in belong to that North London intellectual wing of the Labour Party, and there is a total disconnect between those people and old Labour. And whether we go to South Wales or the Midlands or the north of England, I'm afraid there is a disconnect between people who call themselves global citizens and believe in open borders and old Labour, many of whom are absolutely furious at what Blair's government did. I wonder, Luke in Ascot, what do you think of the future of the Labour Party? Are you a Corbynista? Are you signed up?
Oh, no, not at all. Genuinely, I'm not a fan of Labour. However, I do agree with what you just said, that Corbyn has revolutionised some parts of politics in the recent years. In terms of what I'd do if I was Jeremy Corbyn, I think people are suggesting soft approaches. I would just oust all 47 members of that Labour Party and cause by-elections and take the hit that you're going to lose half the seats, but you can't do a three-line party whip, and your whips themselves ignore you and then be taken seriously as an opposition leader. So you need to set the precedent going forward and say, actually, do you know what? Even if I lose 25 out of the 47 seats,
Luke,
it's what it is.
Luke, this is the most radical political proposal I've ever heard in my life. He's just not going to do that, is he?
I know he's not going to do that, but that's what I would do if I was going to be taken seriously as a leader of a party like Labour. You have to sit there, and the same as Diane Abbott. Yeah, she might have been ill, but this was a monumental decision, and you could have lost your arm. You need to get in there to either vote by proxy or vote yourself.
Luke, you make the point. And I started the show off by saying that people don't vote for split parties, and that is absolutely right. You make the point. He's got to impose discipline. Your method of it is somewhat terrifying, but here's the problem. How do you, as leader of the Labour Party, impose discipline upon that parliamentary group when you yourself, i.e. Mr Corbyn, have defied the party on a variety of whips, including three-line whips, 500 times since 1983? He's not credible, is he, as someone to say, come together?
No, and I agree with that. That was my second point, that obviously his track record, he's not helping himself out by trying to impose whips. I think it was a bad choice in the first place. But, I mean, the only other thing he could do, I suppose, is save a little bit of face and say, actually, if the Labour Party's split without me, I'll resign. And then if it falls to the wayside, then everyone can say, actually, Jeremy Corbyn was the best leader we had as a chance. And they might realise that he was actually quite valuable.
One other quality that he does appear to have, Luke, is stickability. Because don't forget, just a year after he took over, they forced another leadership election, and he stood again, and he won by an even bigger margin. So, Luke, my view is that he's going nowhere, and they're headed for disaster. And I thank you very much indeed for your call. Rob White on Facebook says, Labour should just evaporate, exit, fade, away, melt, whatever you want to call it, bye-bye. Well, I don't think it'd be quite as quick as that, but they are in very, very real trouble. And I just see the split between the North London intellectuals and Old Labour, and I cannot see how they're going to reconcile it, even if Luke thinks all 47 of them should be sacked and forced to face by-elections. Gosh, wouldn't that be fun? Kevin in Rugby, what do you think about the state of the Labour Party?
Hi, Nigel.
Hi.
Well, firstly, I think it's pretty obvious that Corbyn couldn't organise a piss-up in a brewery when even his ex-girlfriend, not very nice to think about, Diane Abbott, had to pull a sickie just before the vote to get out of it.
I mean, whatever happens to the Labour Party, Diane Abbott is not emerging well out of all of this. Please, Diane, call in, because people are really saying nasty things about you.
No, well, I think the problem, the reason why the Labour Party is dying, I think the rot set in long before Corbyn was elected. I think it was almost entirely down to the large-scale immigration that was started under Blair, and Labour long since abandoning the purpose for which they were set up for, which is to protect the working class, and now they're insistent on pursuing their own liberal globalist ideologies like large-scale immigration, and it doesn't benefit the most vulnerable in society.
No, and I think, Kevin, that's a very strong point, and I have to say that Diane Abbott perhaps is the one figure on that Labour front bench that causes more offence to Old Labour on this issue than anybody else. She still is on the line that if you're talking about this issue, basically you're racist and you're stupid. And Kevin, you're right, and I thank you for your call, even if the language was a little bit fruity for before the watershed. I wonder what Rajiv in Pinner thinks. Rajiv, are you a Labour supporter?
Yes, I am very much so. And based on that support, I do think that internally, those votes and who excuse me, who voted against, should not be made public. That's an internal issue amongst the Labour Party, and Corbyn can deal with that amongst his team in the same way that when I go and vote, no one actually sees who I voted for. I think keep that aside, and also,
Oh dear. Oh dear, you're breaking up. I fear you were going to make some very good points, and we have lost you. I'm sorry, Rajiv and Pinner, you have gone. River Magic tweets in to say, Corbyn can't sack the 10 shadow ministers. There is no one left to replace them after the last game of shadow cabinet bingo in June. Well, you do, River Magic, make a very strong point. Already, 76 individuals have served as shadow ministers in the couple of years that Jeremy Corbyn has been leader of the Labour Party. I wonder what Tristan in Greenwich thinks. Tristan, are you a Labour voter?
Not anymore.
Not anymore?
No, first of all, we shouldn't really pick on Diane Abbott because every time she's on the telly, I get a migraine. So, we'll stay off Diane.
I love it.
What I want to say is, Labour is like voting for a group of... Labour is like voting for a group of independents because You have a leader that's anti-Europe, comes out as pro-Europe, even though he isn't, loses. His party are pretty much anti-Europe, particularly in the north, and as you said, the north and south divide.
Yep.
Then he tells his MPs in the whip to vote for Brexit and the Article 50. Half of them don't do it, and then you've got ones that are saying that they will vote against it. And
how does it go, Tristan?
Labour, what are you voting for?
You put your left leg in, your left leg out. Yeah, it's all over the shop, isn't it?
You don't know who you're voting for. Is it you're voting for your local MP?
Yeah.
Are you voting for Jeremy Corbyn?
Yeah.
Are you voting for an opposition party? So until we know, and I know the caller before said about just deselect them, what I would do is something slightly different. I'd do a soft deselection rather than a hard deselection.
Yeah.
I'd sit them all down if I was Jeremy Corbyn and say, this is my manifesto, these are my plans for the next 4 or 5 years up until the next election. If you back me and I lose the election, then I'll step down at the next election. If you don't back me, then you deselect yourself now and we'll have a by-election in your area. So I call that the soft deselection.
OK. That's a sort of Donald Trump approach, isn't it? Now, look, we can do this very nicely if you want to. Otherwise, I'm going to fire you. Tristan, maybe that's what he'll do. Though somehow, I suspect he's going to do absolutely nothing. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively here on LBC. It's 7:30 and time for the news with Moira Alderson.
Rail firm Southern has agreed a deal with the train drivers' union to end their long-running dispute. There's been a series of crippling strikes by ASLEF members during the row about who should be in charge of opening and closing train doors. Labour's accused the government of saying nothing in its blueprint for leaving the European Union. A 77-page white paper has been published setting out the UK's negotiating strategy. The O2 Arena has promised to help rebury a blue-peated time capsule at the venue. The box containing items from 1998, including a Roald Dahl book and a Spice Girls CD, was accidentally dug up during building work 33 years too early. LBC weather, a wet and mild start this evening before it clears and turns colder later on, an overnight low of 8 degrees.
LBC Travel, good evening. I'm Andy Lake. Well, the M25 is queuing clockwise between junctions 28 for the A12 and 30 for the A13 because of an accident that's blocking 2 of the 4 lanes. Elsewhere on the M25, still very slow indeed, anti-clockwise between 9 for Leatherhead and 8 for Reigate after the problems much earlier on the M23. The A13 in North Stifford remains closed coming into London at Stifford Clays Road. That's all for emergency repairs after an accident causing queues from the Tilbury turn-off. It's expected to stay closed throughout the night as well. Lee Bridge Road in Leighton is queuing on both approaches to the works at Leighton Green Road with delays past Whipps Cross University Hospital and from just after Lee Bridge Station as well. Now, similar to yesterday, there's been a serious accident on the A3 in Hampshire at the Queen Elizabeth Country Park. It's down to just one lane in both directions and causing horrible delays coming both ways past that collision there. And in West Yorkshire, the M1 is hardly moving southbound between 41 for Cargate and 45 for Leeds Cross Green near Pontefract. A coach has caught fire. 2 of the 4 lanes are shut and it's causing chaos moving between Leeds and Barnsley tonight. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
This is LBC.
What is the only bird that can fly backwards? What's the name for a fear of cheese? What are the pieces of paper from a hole punch called?
If you know, you have exceptional general knowledge. But at Hiscox, our insurance experts have chosen small business as their specialist subject. That's why more than 200,000 UK businesses rely on us to help provide the right cover. Hiscox, business insurance for the small and the brave.
And the answers: A, the hummingbird, B, turophobia, C, chads.
An amazing kitchen, an amazing bathroom, an amazing hallway. At Amazing Tiles, our range of porcelain, ceramic and bespoke tiles can make any home amazing. Right now, buy 5 metres or more of plain tiles and get 1/3 off the retail price. Visit our showroom and warehouse at Park Royal Road, London, or call 0208 83 84 900. Make your home amazing at amazingtiles.com.
What if someone else did all the donkey work to find out if you had PPI for free? Well, that's exactly what we do here at the Claims Guys. Just text EASY to 60777 and we'll do the digging to discover if you ever had PPI added to one of your accounts. After that, you can pursue the claim yourself or ask us to do it for you. It's your choice. But if you don't text EASY to 60777, you'll never know. The Claims Guys, the PPI people.
The Claims Guys.
Hacksaw Ridge has been nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director Mel Gibson, and 3 BAFTAs, including Best Actor Andrew Garfield.
You don't kill.
No, sir.
You're a conscientious objector.
Mel Gibson brings you the extraordinary true story of the soldier who saved 75 men without lifting a gun. Critics are calling it a movie not to be missed. 5 stars. Hacksaw Ridge, in cinemas now, rated 15.
At Oak Furnitureland, everyone knows our furniture is 100% real hardwood.
And it's also 50% off.
But most importantly, it's 100% real hardwood.
Yes, but don't forget it's also 50% off.
At Oak Furnitureland, quality and price are both important. So make sure you don't miss our winter sale, where everything's 100% real hardwood with up to 50% off. Extra savings in our biggest ever winter sale end this Sunday. Visit oakfurnitureland.co.uk to find your nearest store.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
The Labour Party badly split over Article 50, 47 of their MPs defying a 3-line whip, and yet, hard though I try to say, please, if you're a Labour voter, a Labour supporter, call me, tell me why Corbyn's a good chap. Many of you on social media still want to talk about the one Labour MP that didn't turn up because she had a migraine. Diane Abbott, and Basher Bill tweets in to say, Abbott was on Twitter when the vote was taking place. Headache, my foot. We should have really devoted the whole hour to Diane Abbott, but we didn't. But can I just say this about Old Labour and this split that I'm talking about between the North London intellectuals who view themselves as citizens of the world and Old Labour in the old towns and cities, some of them perhaps post-industrial. Old Labour always was and is fiercely patriotic. It absolutely believes in flying the flag and this country. It's one of the reasons why Old Labour was so united in its opposition to joining the common market all those years ago, back in the 1970s. And Corbyn has a bit of a problem with Old Labour. He doesn't really appear to be that patriotic. I sat behind him in St Paul's Cathedral during the Battle of Britain service, commemorating the 75th anniversary. And if you remember, he wouldn't sing the national anthem. He talks about giving away the Falklands or the Malvinas to Argentina. People don't like that very much. But this following clip is an interview that took place a couple of years ago with Radio Ulster, and it's on his view on the terrorist problems and the IRA. Just listen to this.
Do you condemn what the IRA did?
I condemn all bombing. It's not a good idea. It's terrible what happened.
It's not the question. The question is, do you condemn what the IRA did?
Look, I condemn what was done by the British Army as well as by other sides as well. But what happened in Derry in 1972 was pretty devastating as well.
You prepared to condemn what the IRA did?
Can I answer the question in this way? We gained ceasefires. They were important and they were a huge step forward. Those ceasefires brought about a peace process, brought about a reconciliation process, which is something that we should all be pleased about. Can we take the thing forward rather than backwards?
Are you refusing to condemn what the IRA did?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Are you refusing to condemn what the IRA did? Jeremy,
I think we're going to have to do this later, you know.
Okay, well, let me just this last question while it's quiet there. Are you refusing to condemn what the IRA did?
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Now, it may have been difficult because that was clearly a train in the background, and no doubt he was sitting on the floor of it because they're often very full, those trains, you know. But he simply wouldn't, in that clip, condemn. And in previous times, whenever he gets asked this question, he has on occasions appeared to be more critical of the British Army than he has of the IRA. The point I'm making, folks, is that for vast swathes of the traditional Labour vote in this country, this man is simply unelectable. I don't think it makes any difference whether he sacks his 10 shadow ministers that defied the 3-line whip, whether he sacks all 47. I don't think this guy can impose discipline on the Labour Party. And whilst he may well have been incredibly successful in getting a young, urban crowd into active politics, which in itself is an amazing achievement. That is not reaching out too far beyond the M25. And I think if they stick with him as leader, I think they're doomed. I think they're headed for total disaster. Please ring me, disagree, tell me he is the man for the hour, and that actually, if he holds on in there, by 2020, he'll be in with a shout of beating Theresa May. I want to hear from you. If that's the way you feel, call me on 0345 60 60 973. For now, we're going to Terence in East Grinstead. Terence, have I been too critical of Jeremy Corbyn just there?
Yes, I think you have, actually, because, first of all, the Labour Party, even from its earliest days, was always internationalist as well as being patriotic. And as for the interview about whether he supported the IRA or not, the point is you could have mentioned also that we've occupied Ireland for 300 years. Absolute disgrace. But the reason I phoned is to say that I've sent Jeremy a message today saying that he shouldn't bother to sack any of his top team because they didn't comply with the three-line whip, but instead he should use the opportunity to add to his Brexit negotiators, who are all pro-Europe, he should add Gisela Stewart and Kate Hoey to that team, so it's more balanced.
OK. I mean, Terence, do you know Jeremy Corbyn personally?
No, I don't, but I'd be delighted to, as I would be delighted to meet you or Theresa May.
Right, you're a proper Democrat, Terence. That's very good. Well, I mean, I take your point that he could maybe grab something out of the jaws of this disaster by putting the right people, as you say, on his Brexit team and making it clear that whilst there are some people in the Labour Party whose conscience meant they just couldn't ever go with Britain leaving the European Union, that the party is set on a course. And Terence, the importance of that is one of our previous callers, did say that with the referendum and what's happened since, it's looked a bit like the political hokey-cokey. So, Terence, I think if he takes up your idea, he will bring at least a bit of clarity. But, Terence, let me just throw one question back at you. He won't sing the national anthem. He wants to give away the Falklands. He won't condemn what the IRA did. He's not really patriotic, Terence, is he?
Well, can I just say that if we hadn't invaded the Falkland Islands, we would now have billions and billions and billions of machine order tools, instead of which it all went to Germany.
Terence, we didn't invade the Falkland Islands.
We did.
We didn't.
Yes, we did.
When?
Well, you know when Thatcher invaded.
Well, I think, Terence, and I'm not going to have a punch-up with you because you sound like far too much of a gentleman, but I think you'll find, actually, it was the Argentinians that invaded and we went and liberated them, defending the principle of national self-determination. Another time, Terence, whenever we discuss the Falklands, I'm going to get you on the show first because it'll be good fun. Thank you very much for your call. Facebook messages, Richard Evans suggests that the Labour Party front bench would make great school teachers, but not leaders of a country. I'm not sure what you're saying there, really. Michael Harold says, Labour would be like backing a donkey to run in the Grand National. Probably get good odds on them too. You get massive odds, Michael, on them forming a majority at the next election. And Elvina West says, Corbyn wouldn't step down because, as he said, he was democratically elected. Elvina, I kind of get that. This guy has stickability. And in terms of the Labour Party itself, he has absolute credibility. Twice elected, very big margins, nearly 1/3 new members of the Labour Party. Yeah, for the internal Labour Party, he is the governor. It's just that it's not reaching out to a bigger audience. I wonder, Eileen in Cambridge, what should Corbyn do? Should he sack people? Should he let it all hang out? What should he do, Eileen?
I think it's a really difficult one to some extent because I think whilst he seems to possess some radical opinions, I don't think he's the chap to actually make it happen. I think as we had George kind of set our finances in a good position, ready for Cameron to take the glory, he needs somebody else to do exactly that. He's a utilitarian. He's got some great ideas. I think he's exceptionally passionate, but I don't think he's the right man for Labour at this moment in time.
Are you a member of the Labour Party, Eileen?
No.
You're not? A voter?
Yes.
A voter, yeah. And clearly a Corbyn sympathiser. So basically, Eileen from Cambridge is saying this is a decent man, but not the right guy to lead the Labour Party. Would that be a fair summing up?
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. I think it's interesting to see how split his party is at the moment. I don't think he should stick it out. I think, if anything, he's probably it's going to be to his detriment rather than his advancement as such. And I think that you just need somebody that can grab the ball by the horns, and then to some extent, Corbyn would be the man that does the BAU thereafter. Right.
Well, you know, I think you're right in the sense that he's not the right guy to lead this party, but I don't think, Eileen, he's going anywhere. But anyway, I thank you for your comments. Hey, Nigel, great show. My whole family is a Labour family apart from me. I'm a Conservative. New Labour does not represent the working class. I'm sorry, but no matter how many train floors he sits on, he will never get my vote. And that one sent in anonymously. And lots of you, still, lots of things being said about Diane Abbott, not all of which I really feel I can read out. Corbyn should do nothing with those who defied the whip. In line with everything else he always does. Absolutely nothing. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show, exclusively here on LBC. It's 7:45.
Coming up at 8 on LBC, Clive Bull.
The white paper on Brexit was published today, and it spells out the need for new immigration legislation. But what should the new migration rules be?
Clive Bull on LBC.
The most beautiful things in life are made up of many tiny but individually brilliant details, like the tinkle of piano keys. Sounds nice on its own, but better with a violin alongside. And better still with a whole orchestra. You see, beauty happens when the little things come together. The new Volvo V40R design. Life is in the details.
Hacksaw Ridge has been nominated for 6 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director Mel Gibson, and 3 BAFTAs, including Best Actor Andrew Garfield.
She don't kill.
No, sir.
You're a conscientious objector.
Mel Gibson brings you the extraordinary true story of the soldier who saved 75 men without lifting a gun. Critics are calling it a movie not to be missed. 5 stars. Hacksaw Ridge, in cinemas now, rated 15.
Wilbur, wake up! Having that broken boiler nightmare again? No. You'll sleep easy with home care from British Gas to help you avoid unexpected bills and breakdowns. Boiler cover starts from just £9 a month for our energy customers, with an annual boiler service and parts and labour included. And you'll get 1 month free when you buy selected home care products online by 20th of February. That's 12 months for the price of 11. Sweet dreams, Wilbur. Aww. For home care with 1 month free, search British Gas. Conditions apply.
Do you have a pension? Maybe you've got more than one. How do you know if they're in the right pension funds, making as much money as possible for your retirement? Answer is, you probably don't. At The Pension Works, our fully qualified independent financial advisors could add instant value to your retirement fund. Simply text the word YES to 83222 for your free Pension Works health check. That's YES to 83222 today. Your pensions working harder with The Pension Works.
Divorce. It affects every part of your life. You, your family, your home, your finances. And if you're a man facing divorce, perhaps even one you don't want, the situation becomes even more complicated. It's at times like these that you need a professional you can trust. Cordell & Cordell is dedicated to helping men in matters relating to divorce. Call now on 0330 60 60 161 or visit cordell.co.uk, office in central London. A partner men can count on.
Beauty happens when the little things come together. The new Volvo V40R design, now from just $199 a month, including maintenance with Volvo Car Leasing.
2-year contract hire agreement with an initial rental of £2,388. Offer ends March 31st, subject to status. Mileage and return conditions apply. Maintenance covers routine servicing, tyres, replacement parts and repairs due to fair wear and tear. Visit volvocars.co.uk for more details.
Pop in for a test drive today at your nearest Volvo showroom. The Volvo V40R design. Life is in the details.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Just because the Labour Party has been a massive fixture in British politics for just over a century does not mean it has to be here in 10 or 20 years' time. They are badly split over Article 50, over immigration, over Trident, over many other things. There are 2 tribes within the Labour Party. The North London intellectuals against patriotic old Labour. Very difficult for the 2 of them to work together. And they've got a leader who, whilst many of you have texted and tweeted and rung in to say that he's a very decent human being and you admire him, he supports a fanatical. He gets a big fan base, but it doesn't reach out to the rest of the country. And, of course, one of his great supporters, Diane Abbott, has not endeared herself to anybody in this debate. And I have had confirmation. Basher Bill sent him a tweet saying she was on Twitter whilst the vote was going on, and we've checked it. And Diane Abbott was on Twitter whilst that vote was going on. So if it was a migraine, Diane, it can't have been that bad, can it? Brian lives in Barry in Wales. And Brian, of course, the Labour Party has virtually died in Scotland, which rather proves my point that parties are not necessarily here forever. How's it looking for Corbyn's Labour Party in Wales, Brian?
I think a lot of people are changing their minds. I was a Labour supporter for quite a few years. Not a member, but a supporter.
Yeah.
And what I've seen, like, my father was a coal miner here in Wales, so everyone voted Labour.
Yes.
But things have moved on. There are no coal mines. The steelworks has shrunk. It's a different way from 20 years ago. And a lot of people will not now support Labour. They back Labour because their father backed Labour. But things have moved on and changed. And I honestly and truly think I must be very thick, but I don't understand Labour anymore. I'm sorry, I don't understand what they stand for. You know what I mean?
Brian, I do know exactly. I think there are millions of people out there like you who've been Labour all their lives who are saying, what exactly... And that's the problem, Brian, I'm talking about, that when you've got these two completely different wings of a party, you've got a Westminster party that is very much, as I call it, the North London intellectuals, and you've got a huge mass of voters out in the country who are patriotic old Labour, who want to see a Labour Party standing up for the weak and standing up for ordinary people. Then I think, Brian, your question is perfectly fair. Let me ask you one thing. I mean, do you think that if the Labour Party had a different leader, it might be more appealing to voters in South Wales?
No, because I think their policy is straight through and they can change it in a minute. Depends on who asked them the question. And I don't think they've actually sat down and got some sort of policy that they're working behind. It changes from day to day. And I think Corbyn, again, he's been in Parliament very many years, but
sure.
I don't think he is standing up for the working man or for the things of today. Things have moved on so fast that Corbyn is now a thing of the past.
Brian, is the Labour Party doomed?
Yes, I think so. Everything has its day, and I think your party will come up. I really do.
Well,
because people have had enough. And this has been a fantastic couple of years, or 12 months. We've seen Trump booked in.
Yep.
You can like him or hate him, but he's getting things done, which the last president didn't do anything that I could see.
Yep.
And also, it's about time that Parliament was shook up, because it hasn't really changed since the days of Robin Hood.
Well, Brian, you're right. Things have changed a lot in politics globally in the last 12 months. And I have to say, one of the reasons I'm enjoying doing this LBC show so much is because current affairs now is what people are talking about and caring about. And we've really got, I think, some passion and debate back. And Brian, thank you. And I repeat the point I've made before. You know, I want everyone, whatever your views, agree, disagree, ring me, don't use bad language, don't shout. Let's have a proper debate, because this debate about our future, not just this country, but the entire West, this is what is dominating our lives at the moment. And I'm just thrilled to be here and to be a part of it. And I hope a reasonably fair umpire. Mark in the Old Kent Road. Is Corbyn going to be the next Prime Minister, Mark? Tell me.
No, I don't think he'll be the next Prime Minister.
Right.
Hello, Nigel.
Hi.
But I think he's not as derided in the country, as you probably might think he is. I just want to kind of pick up on the thing where you said he wasn't as, pro-British as he should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, look, I'm pro-British. I love my country, for good or bad, right?
Yeah.
That's the way I was brought up, right? You love your country as well, right? So, end of story, right? But there's a lot of people in this country, Nigel, who are not pro-British, who are British, but they're not pro-British. Some of them are from, if you go up some parts of the north, Liverpool, they love him up there. And they're very pro-IRA as well. And if you go to some parts of Manchester, they're not pro-British. They don't even want to follow the England football team. So
who do they follow in Manchester then, Mark?
Man United. That's it.
Well, that's
they're not interested. They're not interested in England. They're not interested in the nationalist side of it. They're not interested in it.
You're going to tell me that Man U's their religion as well next?
Yeah, of course you know that. You know that. What I'm saying is, he's got a lot more support up there in England than what you think.
All right,
Don't
Mark.
Underestimate it.
Mark, I will concede that my comment about Corbyn not spreading beyond the M25 is not entirely true. There are parts around the country where he does have considerable pockets of support. My point, Mark, is that he doesn't reach out to the broader population. He's appealing to predominantly quite a young group of voters who are extremely internationalist, who believe that we're global citizens, who basically support the free movement of people. And sure, there are pockets of those in our big cities. My point, Mark, is he is not reaching out to the working classes without whom Labour cannot get enough votes to govern.
Yeah, but the thing is it's all very well... Look, people say, like you're saying about, the people are internationalists and things like that, but they're not going to admit that they support the IRA. They're not going to admit that. They're not going to come out and say, we believe on it.
Come on, there can't be that many. There can't be that many
IRA
IRA supporters in Liverpool, Mark, surely.
Yeah, but hold on a minute. You've got to look at the Irish descendants. It's not just about Irish people, it's the descendants.
Yeah, well...
4 or 5 generations of Irish people that have been in England. They are sympathisers.
Well, there may be some of them, Mark, but I do not buy the idea that Liverpool is a hotbed of IRA support. I really do not. Jake in Brentford, are you a Labour supporter, Jake? How do you feel about Mr Corbyn's leadership?
I'm not a Labour supporter. I grew up in a Labour household. My parents voted Labour.
Yes.
And their parents voted Labour. And the Labour they voted for and the Labour they brought up with is completely different to the Labour we have today. Back in the day, up from what my parents told me, Labour would fight for the working man, fight for the average man. But now it only seems that they care about virtue signalling and turning up every 4 years and asking for a vote. And I think Corbyn's a real symptom of that. It's hijacked by a sort of, as you said, within the M25 North London intellectuals that have stopped caring about the average man. They don't care about the average person's problems anymore because they're well off.
So if they got, Jake, if they got a different leader that perhaps connected with old Labour, would it all be different? And would they then rocket up in? Because they're currently 24 to 25% in the opinion polls. They're down where they were under Michael Foot back in 1983. They're in trouble. Would a new leader rejuvenate them?
I think you'd have to get a new leader who isn't part of this political class. I think the way we've seen with Brexit and the way we've seen with Trump winning is that people are tired of being ignored. If we had somebody who actually worked a day in their life, maybe the Labour support in the North might come back.
Well, Jake, it might, but he doesn't look like resigning very quickly, does he? Jake, thank you. Facebook messages, Paul Costello says, I've always said David Miliband was the man for Labour. Too late now. Derek Winder says, voted Labour all my life, as did my parents, but never again. And Derek, if the opinion polls are right, you're not on your own. If the polls are right, they've fallen by nearly a third since the last general election. And my final thought is this, that Corbyn actually needs to go. He can't stay as leader if the party is to have a cat's chance in hell of getting within 100 seats of the Conservatives in 2020. The problem is he won't go because the membership of the Labour Party won't get rid of him, and if they did, they'd finish up with John McDonnell, who would alienate old Labour even worse. I think they've got a real problem. In fact, I think it's fair to say that the Labour Party faces an existential crisis. They disappeared in Scotland, and I think they're going to see, literally, they are going to cease to be. They're going to cease to be a political party that really can provide opposition. And even if you're a Tory, don't cheer it. It is not good news. You've been listening to me, Nigel Farage, on LBC. At 10 it's Ian Collins, but up next it's Clive Bull.
Thank you, Nigel. So we'll continue talking about Brexit and the white paper that was published today. It spells out the need for new immigration legislation. The question is, though, what will that legislation be? What could the new migration rules set out? We'll talk about that. Plus, what has Donald Trump been up to today? Did he really put the phone down on the Australian Prime Minister? We'll have the latest from Washington. And at 9, it's the Property Hour. Joining me is Paul Champlina, founder of Landlord Action. So we're looking at the housing market, and we'll have advice on landlord and tenant problems. The number you need, 0345 6060 973.
On FM, online, on your mobile and on digital radio. Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, one of the rail unions in dispute with Southern Railway has reached a deal over changes to the role of conductors. It should mean an end to the series of strikes by drivers. These commuters say they're relieved.
Can't even tell you. If I could do backflip now, I would. It's been beyond a nightmare.
It's difficult when you can't rely on the trains. Be good for everybody.
I've been suffering terrible disruption for quite a considerable amount of time now. So very pleased to hear the news, obviously.
ASLEF members still need to vote on the agreement, and the company's long-running row with the RMT union still isn't resolved. Opposition parties are dismissing the government's white paper on Brexit as too little, too late. The document, which was published today, sets out 12 key principles of the Prime Minister's negotiating strategy. Tory MP Sir Gerald Howarth has told LBC they were starting on the back foot.
I'll bear in mind that the previous government, David Cameron and George Osborne, had not done any work on preparing for a leave vote. They had assumed that the vote was going to be to remain. So David Davis, Boris Johnson and Liam Fox, and of course the Prime Minister himself, have had to work overtime to produce something.
6 months after a 10-year-old boy and his aunt were hit and killed by a car being chased by police, the driver has pleaded guilty to their manslaughter. Micaiah McDermott and Rosie Cooper died after they walked along a road in south-east London. 6 bankers have been jailed for almost 50 years in total for their involvement in a £245 million loan scam. They targeted business clients of HBOS, offering them inappropriate loans and spending the profits on luxury holidays and prostitutes. Detective Superintendent Nick John led the investigation.
It's vital we don't forget the impact this has had on the victims, and not the victims of those businesses, but also the bank, the shareholders, the customers, and the public at large. This is a significant amount of offending.
The Bank of England is predicting stronger growth over the next year, despite the UK's decision to leave the EU. GDP is expected to grow 2% this year, the same as last, fuelled by consumer borrowing. The base rate of interest is remaining on hold. The LBC Markets report, the FTSE 100 ended today, up 33 at 71.40. The pound buys you $1.25 and €1.16. LBC weather, a wet and mild start to this evening for most before it clears and turns colder later on. An overnight low of 8 degrees Celsius. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Moira Alderson.
LBC Travel, good evening, I'm Andy Lake. Well, the M25 is queuing clockwise between junction 28 for the A12 and 30 for the A13 because of an accident which is blocking 2 of the 4 lanes. Long delays now coming along that stretch. The M25 also very slow anti-clockwise between 21 for the M1 and 20 for the A41 at Kings Langley. There's been an accident which is still blocking the inside lane. The A13 in North Stifford remains closed coming into London at Stifford Clays Road. That's all for emergency repairs after an accident causing queues from the Tilbury turn-off. It's expected to stay closed throughout tonight as well. Lea Bridge Road in Leighton is queuing on both approaches to the roadworks at Leighton Green Road. Delays there past Whipps Cross University Hospital and from just after Lea Bridge Station. Similar to yesterday, there's been a serious accident on the A1 in Hampshire at the Queen Elizabeth Country Park. It's down to just one lane in both directions and causing horrible delays coming both ways past that collision there. And no change in West Yorkshire either. The M1 still very slow southbound between 41 for Cargate and 45 for Leeds Cross Green. A coach has caught fire, closing 2 of the 4 lanes, creating big issues between Leeds and Barnsley tonight. For more real-time traffic updates, go to lbc.co.uk.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Clive Bull.
Coming up, Donald Trump. What has he been doing today? Did he really put the phone down on Australian Prime Minister? We'll have the latest from Washington. Coming up at 9, the Property Hour. We're taking your calls on the housing market, becoming a landlord, and advice on landlord and tenant problems. The number you need, 0345 6060 973. First, though, finally, the white paper on Brexit has been published. It's out today. No, I haven't read all 77 pages of it, although Ian Dale is promising to do that. It spells out, though, one thing very clearly: the need for new immigration legislation. It's not going to be detailed in the white paper. It just says we're going to need some new laws on immigration. And my question for you is, what should those new migration rules be? Where are we left? If we scrap freedom of movement, which it makes pretty clear is going to happen, what do you replace it with? Ministers will have to introduce separate legislation to set out new immigration and customs systems after the UK leaves the EU. David Davis has said that after publishing the government's Brexit white paper, that this 77-page document I mentioned, it does spell out the need for further legislation. We're also told that it's unlikely anything will suddenly change, but things would be phased in. Not indefinitely, not in a transition forever, but don't expect anything to be very different in 2 years' time. That's the implication. I think they're probably right about that. What should the new rules be in your view? Will it leave Britain short of workers? Should we have freedom of movement as we have it now? Should we have a bit of freedom of movement, a kind of freedom of movement light? Should we have a work permit system? And if so, what would the effect of that be? Who would get the work permits? And I think the bottom line of all this is, after everything that we're going to be going through, do you think in a few years' time, in terms of migration, anything will have changed very much? Because I have to tell you, I'm highly doubtful about that. What do you think should happen in terms of immigration? As we learn, there's going to have to be separate legislation set out before Parliament. What should those new rules be? What will the effect be? 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. You can also text 84850. You can tweet at LBC, but best thing to do, call me now with your thoughts on this. What should happen? 0345 6060 973. Let's get the view first of Michael Skopinka, who is contributing editor at the Financial Times. Recently wrote a piece called "Britain Will Still Need Plenty of Us Immigrants." Good evening, Michael.
Good evening.
So the white paper is out. Do you think we're any the wiser in terms of immigration? What's your view on this?
Well, it said what Theresa May has been saying for quite a while, is that she wants to have control, as she puts it, over the number of EU migrants coming in. And there is something in the white paper that she's spoken about before, about the need for skilled immigration. And this is something that appears in the white paper as well.
So from your point of view, do you feel that this will enable business to get the kind of immigration that they want and need?
Well, I think there are two interesting things about this. First of all, there is a desire to say which sectors are going to require immigration and to try and define which sectors require immigration, which is a little bit strange for a conservative government because usually conservative governments believe that the market should dictate what's required. So we're going to have, it seems, a great bureaucratic exercise in deciding which sectors actually need immigrants. The second issue is that we already have a work permit system for non-EU migrants. And what we're going to have is we're going to have a work permit system for EU migrants, which is going to introduce a level of bureaucracy that businesses have not had to deal with before. They've been quite accustomed over the last 4 decades to recruiting and hiring the EU citizens that they felt they needed and had the skills that they needed in their businesses. So it's going to be a lot more complicated.
So the work permit would probably have to be applied for by the company that was going to employ the person? Is that how it would work, do you imagine?
Yes. I mean, basically somebody, well, it's not clear whether people would have to apply from outside the country, whether they'd have to be here, if they could apply from in the country, if they'd come on a visitor's visa. So, yes, it's going to be something that businesses are going to have to get a lot more used to. But I think the more important point for me is there seems to be a desire to control overall numbers of net migration, which has been the government's aim for a long time, to reduce the number, as we know, the number of net migrants to the tens of thousands. And as I say, Theresa May has spoken persistently about how we do need skilled immigrants. Phil Hammond has said the same thing. And I think what's being left out here is the great dependency of the UK on non-skilled migration. If you look at, yes.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that is the sort of glaring question here in a way, isn't it? I keep mentioning the fact that if you wander out into central London, you're more than likely going to be served by an EU migrant in a coffee shop, in a bar. Where are all those people going to come from?
Exactly. If you look at the statistics that were put out by the Migration Observatory at Oxford University, they looked at the top 10 occupations of foreign-born workers. This was in 2015, so I don't think it's changed very much. And they found the top 10 occupations employing foreign-born workers were not the NHS, they were not high-tech companies, they were not investment banks. The top occupations for foreign-born workers were factory workers, especially in the food processing industry. Very high up was cleaning workers, housekeeping managers, elementary cleaning occupations, as they call it, food preparation and hospitality. These are all areas where the number of people from abroad who are filling these jobs is anywhere between 30 and 40%. Now, in Theresa May's terms, these are not skilled occupations, and yet we're very, very dependent on these workers. It's very difficult to see how businesses are going to cope if all of the work permit applications are going to be for skilled occupations.
Well, yes, and what do you think businesses' answer to that would be then? I mean, we're told that there are people out there that want to work. I mean, we don't have huge unemployment, but there are people here already that want to work. Maybe businesses would have to pay more? I mean, is that part of the equation?
Probably. I mean, we do have a minimum wage, and, people have rightly said this should be enforced. That's absolutely vital. I think what we will probably see, we might see wages going up, but what generally happens in response to that is you get higher levels of automation. Companies that are employing people now, for example, in food processing and jobs like that, we'll probably see machines, robots taking over those jobs because that will be cheaper than putting the wages up. That doesn't really answer the question of what we're going to do about areas like cleaning and care workers as well. We're an aging population, more and more people requiring social care. There aren't a lot of people around to do it. As you said, unemployment is pretty low by historic standards. Employment levels are at record levels. So, it's not as though there are huge numbers of people out there ready, willing and able to do these jobs.
No, I can absolutely see that. What my listeners often will also point out, though, is the kind of net figure, the net migration figure, which is pretty large. With an increasing population, do you believe that is putting strain, though, on services, on even housing? For example, 1/3 people every year, net migration. That is a lot of people, and that's again, it's part of the equation, isn't it?
It is. I mean, there's absolutely no doubt there are parts of the country where the big increase in migration is putting pressure on services. I mean, it would be silly to deny that. But I think we've got to look at a number of factors here. First of all, that net migration figure is a very strange one to have chosen for two reasons. First of all, it compares the number of people, it takes the number of people coming in, and then it deducts from that the number of people emigrating, the number of people going out. Now, it's very difficult to control this. How many people leave the country, how many come in. The second factor is Theresa May has absolutely insisted for years now, in the face of opposition from inside her own cabinet, on including student numbers in the net migration figures. And that doesn't, I think, make much sense to anybody. We've seen a lot of opinion polls saying people welcome students. They don't think they should be part of the migration numbers. Higher education, university education, college education, this is a great British export industry. And I think it's been very, very damaging to include student numbers in these figures. Now, I don't want to take away the fact that there has been a big increase in immigration. It does worry people. They do see the faces of their neighborhoods, the nature of their neighborhoods changing. I don't want to diminish any of that, but I think this concentration on the net figure is, to me, a very strange one to be looking at.
Do you think during the campaigning, there was a lot of talk about the Australian points-based system. Do you think that's going to play any part, or is that a goner now?
I think it is. I mean, Theresa May dismissed it right almost at the start. She said she wasn't having anything of that sort. And, the Australian point system is a lot more complex than people understand. And as I say, we're introducing a level of cost and bureaucracy to companies by doing these sorts of things, even a work permit system, which they really didn't have before.
What do you think is the most likely outcome? If we're looking at things in, say, 3 years' time, will we have a different immigration system by then? Will numbers have been altered in any way?
Well, I'll make a prediction. You can come back to me in 3 years' time. I think we'll have a huge increase in bureaucracy, and I don't think we will see any significant change in the number of immigrants. These immigrants are here because the economy needs them. Most of them, all the surveys show, are in work. They're doing jobs that need to be done. Frankly, I don't think that's going to change. Now, people might say, well, that doesn't matter. At least we've got control of it. But frankly, I don't think we're going to see very much change in the numbers.
Michael, thank you very much. Michael Skapinka there from the Financial Times. What's your view on this then? Will things be very different in terms of immigration in 2, 3, 4 years' time? What should the new rules be? As we learned today, there will definitely have to be new, separate legislation on immigration. 0345 6060 973 is the number. LBC, I'm Clive Bull, 8:15.
LBC Through Your Workday with Sheila Fogarty from 1 after James O'Brien at 10.
But most of us who are white are not white supremacists. And most of us who are Muslims are not Islamist supremacists. So let the supremacists thrash it out together and leave the rest of us alone for a while, will you? Islamist supremacists, white supremacists, they're running the world. How many of us actually subscribe to either of those schools of thought?
This is LBC.
How many tablets did you take this morning? On average, people over 55 say 4. That's over 100 a month. Well, at least for your painful joints, there's an alternative treatment. Voltarol 12-hour gel works deep in the joint to fight pain and inflammation all day long. Voltarol 12-hour gel. Let's hear it for the joy of movement. Ask your pharmacist.
Voltarol 12-hour Emigel P 2.32% gel contains diclofenac diethyl ammonium for relief of pain and inflammation. Always read the label.
Landlords, Direct Line guarantees to beat other insurers' renewal premiums for the same cover. Can your insurance do that? Switch to Direct Line Landlord. New customers only. Qualifying criteria apply. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Westway. From the Duke to the Qashqai and X-Trail, at Westway there's an award-winning Nissan crossover to perfectly fit your lifestyle. There are also incredible deals to help you drive one away, like up to £2,500 towards your finance deposit and up to 3 years free servicing with Nissan Finance on Duke and Qashqai. 3.99% representative APR finance and even 0% APR finance on selected crossover models. So get across to Westway. Finance subject to status. Google Westway Nissan today.
T's and C's apply. At Oak Furnitureland, everyone knows our furniture is 100% real hardwood.
And it's also 50% off.
But most importantly, it's 100% real hardwood.
Yes, but don't forget it's also 50% off.
At Oak Furnitureland, quality and price are both important. So make sure you don't miss our winter sale, where everything's 100% real hardwood with up to 50% off. Extra savings in our biggest ever winter sale end this Sunday. Visit oakfurnitureland.co.uk to find your nearest store.
A big night out. A lumpy bed.
There are so many things that can keep us awake. But if you can't sleep because you're worried about paying the bills, we can help. Capitalise provides free, impartial and confidential face-to-face support to help people in trouble manage their debt. Find out more at capitalise.org.uk.
If someone super cute has caught your eye, zing them flowers, there's no point in being shy. Valentine's is for romance, so go on, scaredy pants, zing them flowers that say, hey, I'm your guy.
Be an early lovebird. Order now at zingflowers.com and save 15% with the code LOVE.